Hi everyone, today we are going to discuss process modeling in system analysis and design. Process modeling involves graphically representing the functions or processes which capture, manipulate, store and distribute data between a system and its environment and between components within a system. So basically, what is process modeling? Now the name itself says process modeling. That means you're modeling the process. So what it involves, whenever we are using models to represent something, that means it is a graphical representation. Therefore, process modeling also involves graphically representing the functions or processes, because what are we modeling? We are modeling the processes which are also known as functions. So that means graphically representing the functions or processes. And what do these processes do or these functions do? They capture, manipulate, store and distribute data between a system and its environment and between the components within a system. A common form of process model is a data flow diagram. So a common process model that we have heard or seen is data flow diagram, also known as DFDs. The DFDs represents the system overview. Now let's look at DFDs or the data flow diagrams. A data flow diagram can be categorized in the following forms. So what are these forms? A DFD or a data flow diagram has the first form known as the context diagram. So the first form in which a DFD can be categorized is the context diagram. When we talk of a context diagram, it basically provides us with an overview of an organizational system that shows the system boundaries, external entities that interact with the system. So basically it will provide you with an overview, a general information about the organizational system as to what all the system boundaries are, what are the external entities that interact with the system, and what are the major information flows, between those entities and that system. So in this diagram, there is a single process that would represent the whole system. So talking of context diagram, let's look at what a context diagram looks like through an example. So as I said, the first category of a data flow diagram or DFD is the context diagram. Now let us look at the context diagram for a hotel room booking system or a hotel room reservation system. So this is the process that you have to book a room in a hotel. Now there are several external entities for that, like the guest, the bookings that have to take place. The bookings have to take place through a certain bank. When you are doing payment for booking, it has to be done through a certain bank. Then there is a time or schedule for the booking. There are various rooms which would either be available or not available for the booking. Then there is an external reservation system through which the customer can get the booking done. So this is the process, and these are the entities. So whenever a guest has to book a room, the guest will give the booking request to book a room. If the booking request has been accepted, then the booking confirmation will be given to the guest. Similarly for bookings, booking is again an entity, external entity, and what it has to do, like booking is finally booking the room. That means you are booking the room for yourself in that particular hotel. Then when you have to book the room, when the booking confirmation has been received, you are finally booking the room. In that case, you have to make the payment through some bank. So first of all, the payment validation will go to the hotel for booking the room, and then from there the payment validation request will be received to the bank, which will do the final payment. Then there is a certain time or schedule at which the booking is done. So like at what particular time, what is the current time that is at which the booking is done, that is also important. Then there are rooms. So out of all the available rooms, which particular room is being booked, a booking request goes to the external reservation system, and after the booking has been done, considering all these external factors or entities, booking confirmation is given for booking the room. So this is how the entire process of booking a room in a hotel takes place. And I said, as I said, the context diagram gives you an overview of this entire process. So here we have not gone into the details of how exactly the rooms are booked. We have given a general overview of how a booking will be done. So this is a context diagram for a hotel room reservation system. So this is what a context diagram looks like. As I said, it gives you an overview of the organization system, and here we do not go into any of the intricacies of the booking, reservation or the reservation system for the room. Then the second category of a DFD is the first level DFD. After the context diagram comes the first level DFD. Now in the first level DFD or a first level data flow diagram, it represents the system's major processes, data flows and data stores at a high level of detail. Now here we are not providing just the general overview. Here we are going into little higher level of details as compared to the context diagram. So whatever the major processes of the system are, whatever data flows are taking place from one process to process to another entity, or from one entity to another entity, whatever data stores are there for the storage of data, all these things are described at a high level of detail. So talking of the first level DFD, a first level DFD looks somewhat like this. So as you saw in the context diagram for the hotel room reservation system, we were just looking at the overall system overview, a general view of how the rooms in a hotel will be booked without going into the details. But in the first level DFD, the context diagram is further studied into details. So like again you have the room booking system or a book room system, and then going into the details, that input is the hotel management. It is the hotel management system that is responsible for booking the room. Then there is a room management system. Within the hotel management system, there is a room management system, and then there is a booking management system which is responsible for booking a room. Then there is a guest or customer management system which will be managing all the guests or customers who come there for booking the rooms. There is a login management system when you are booking the system online. There is the system user management. These are all things go as input into this process of booking a room. And what are the outputs of booking the room? That once a room is booked, it generates the report, generates the room report. The hotel report is generated as to in which hotel the room is booked, generate the room report as to which particular room or on which particular floor number the room has been booked. Then booking report is generated, which will give you a final confirmation as to at what time and for what date the room has been booked. It will generate the customer or guest report. The details of the customer will be there. Then it will check the user login details, whether all the user login details are correct or not, and then they will be generated as output. And finally it will generate the system user report. So here you have seen, as compared to the context diagram, we have gone into the details of the various processes and the data flows also, you can say. So these data flows, these directed arrows are representing the data flows as to the data is flowing from which direction to which particular direction, and from which entity to which particular process, or from which entity to which another entity. So here we are representing the major processes, the data flows and data stores at high level as compared to the context diagram. Then the third category of a DFD after the context diagram and the first level DFD is the functional decomposition diagram. The functional decomposition diagram is an iterative process of breaking the description of a system into finer and finer details. So basically, whatever description of the system at a general level we have seen at the context diagram and the first level DFD, now here we are going into the finer details of that. That means iteratively we are breaking the description into much finer details at each and every step, which will create a state of charts in which one process on a given chart is explained in a greater detail on another chart. So if you have several processes, so there will be a explanation of each and every process in a separate chart. So one chart for the explanation of one process. So basically each and every process being described at a finer and detailed level over here. In this diagram, the sub processes of first level DFD are explained in detail. So in the first level DFD, we are concentrating only on the process, main process, and not on the sub processes. But when we move on to the functional decomposition diagram, there we go into much finer details, more finer details, and hence we not just describe the processes. The process has already been described in the first level DFD, but here we move on to describing these sub processes of that process which were not described in the first level DFD. So here the sub processes of the first level DFD are explained in detailed. There is no limit on the number of data flow diagrams that can be drawn. So there is no limit on how many data flow diagrams for sub processes will be drawn, because it depends upon the project at hand, and obviously it depends upon how many sub processes you have. So there is no restriction as to that. There is no such restriction that you have only one first level DFD or second level DFD. It depends upon the number of sub processes that you have. That means it depends upon the project at hand. Now let's look at a functional decomposition diagram also. Let's explain a functional decomposition diagram through an example. Like here we can see the functional decomposition diagram for a hotel management system. Now hotel management is a process in itself. Then what are the sub processes of hotel management? Master management, inventory system, services management, then booking management, payment details, and reports. Now you can clearly see that hotel management here is a process, and all these are the sub processes of the hotel management system. As I told you, in the functional decomposition diagram, we go into the details of the sub processes. That is, we explain each and every sub process in detail. Hence, we have a chart for each and every sub process. So that means these sub processes will now be explained in details in each and every iteration. So as you saw, master maintenance is one sub process. So we will have a chart for this master maintenance sub process in the first iteration. Now master maintenance sub process, within the sub process you have customer details, you have room details, you have discount details, you have rate details, you have room amenities details. Then there are room type details, the seasonal rate, like according to season the rates keep on changing, the contract details, the corporate customer details, and the employee details. So here in this chart, the sub process master maintenance has been explained in detail. This was the first iteration. Now as you can see, the second sub process is the inventory system. So in the second iteration, they have explained the inventory system sub process. So within the inventory system, you have sub processes like you generate the purchase orders, you check expiry of stock, you check the EOQs, you check the reorder level, you check the record new stocks, then you record defective stocks, you update the item details. Then within the this hotel management process, the third sub process was the service management. So then in the third iteration, you can see the service management sub process has been explained in detail. Like within the service management, what all things have to be considered, what all services are available, what all services have been availed out of the available services, what are each and individual service rates, who are the service providers, and what all service categories are there. Then in the fourth iteration, as you can see, the fourth sub process within the hotel management system was the booking management sub process. So here you have seen that the booking or cancellation management sub process has been explained in detail. So what all things have to be looked when you are booking or cancelling a particular request. So in booking or cancellation management comes whether you check the room vacancy. You can book a room only when it is vacant. Then if it has been booked or if it has been checked or the customer has checked out from the room, in that case you update room and customer, you update the identification info as and when whichever customer books the room, you record or cancel request. Then the fifth sub process, here you can see the fifth sub process is the payment details sub process within the hotel management process. So in the fifth iteration, the payment details sub process has been explained in detail. So what all things are done within payment details? You prepare the invoice, you do the direct billing, you generate the bill, and you receive the payment. So this is what a functional decomposition diagram basically looks like. So now you've understood the difference between the context diagrams, the first level DFDs, and the functional decomposition diagram, and how at every subsequent category you go into finer and finer details. Okay, now let's look at all the components of the data flow diagram. Now, till now we have seen that there are three categories of a data flow diagram, which include the context diagram at the first category, the first level DFD in the second category, and the functional decomposition diagram in the third category. Now, talking about what all components are there in a data flow diagram, then the first component or element of a data flow diagram is a process. You know, everything revolves around the process, whether it is a DFD or a context diagram or a functional decomposition diagram. We are basically representing the processes or functions through this particular data flow diagram. So the first important component or element of a data flow diagram is a process. During a process, the input data is acted upon by various instructions whose result is transformed data. So what is basically process? Process means something which is happening, something which is in execution. We say things are under process, that means things are executing. So what happens during a process? Whatever input data has been provided into the system, that is acted upon or worked upon, or that is processed by a lot of instructions, and the result of those instructions acting upon the input data is that you get some transformed data. That means that raw data is transformed into some result or information. The transformed data may be stored or distributed. Now it depends upon the situation or the requirement. This transformed data may either be stored or it may be distributed. When modeling the data processing of a system, it doesn't matter whether the process is performed manually or by computer. Now what is important is that what the process is, how the process is taking place. It does not matter whether the process is done manually or by a computer. Now, people, procedures, or devices can be used as processes that use or produce data, right? So, process could be anything basically. It could be some people, it could be any procedures, or it could be devices which can be used as processes and that are using or producing data. So a process can either use the data or produce data, and a process could be anything ranging from people to procedures to devices. Now a very important thing, what is the notation for a process in a data flow diagram? How do we represent a process in a DFD? It is through this circle symbol. Then the second important element of a data flow diagram is the data flow itself, which, as I told you, is represented by some directed arrows like this, and it is basically telling you about the flow of data. That means in which direction the data is flowing, as to from which particular entity to which another entity, or from which entity to which particular process. So data flow, basically when I say data flow, we know that data moves in a specific direction from a point of origin to a point of destination. So from that particular point from where the data is flowing, that is known as the point of origin, and that particular point to which it will go is known as the point of destination. So it's quite obvious that the data will move in a specific direction from its point of origin to the point of destination, and this data could be in any form ranging from a document, letter, telephone call, or any other virtual medium. So whether it is a document or a letter or a telephone call, this all will be known as data. The data flow is a packet of data. So basically what is data flow? Data flow is carrying the packet of data, or the data which could be document, letters, telephone calls, and the notation for a data flow is this directed arrow symbol. The third important element of a DFD or a data flow diagram is the source or sink of data. So origin or destination of data is known as the source and sink of data respectively. So when I say source of data, that means the origin of data from which the data has originated, and when I say destination sink of data, that means the destination of data where the data is finally destined for. So the origin and or destination of data sometimes are referred to as external entities. So from wherever the data is coming or to wherever the data is going, these are considered as the external entities of the system. So basically source and sink of data are the external entities. These external entities could be anything. That means the source or destination of data could be anything. It could be people, it could be programs, it could be organization, or some other entities that are interacting with the system. So anything that is interacting with the system either to give inputs or to receive output is known as an external entity, and they could range from people, programs, or organization. So they are basically outside the boundaries of the system. They are not within the boundaries of the system. They are outside the boundaries of the system. Hence they are known as the external entities. The terms source and sink are interchangeable with origin and destination. As I said, origin is also known as source of data and destination is also known as sink of data. So what is the notation for the source and sink of data? The notation for the source of sink of data, also known as entities or external entities, is this rectangular box. Like here in the context diagram, these are all sources or sinks of data. You can see these directed arrows are representing the flow of data. So from this process, the data from this particular system, the data goes to this particular sink, or it is coming from a particular source here. So these are all external entities represented by the rectangular system. So all the rectangular systems are the external entities, all the rectangular boxes are the external entities for this system from where either the data is coming or to which either the data is going. That means they are the source and sink of data. Hence they are known as the external entities and they are represented by this rectangular box. Similarly, in the first level DFD also you can see that these rectangular boxes are the external entities because they are the sources and sinks of data from where either the data is coming as input to the process or it is going as output from the process. So again you can see that these external entities are represented through the rectangular boxes. So external entities, be it a source or a sink of data, is represented through this rectangular box in a data flow diagram.